Hey everybody, it's Bill Owen from MNPC Tech, and thank you for joining our live stream today. We are looking at the new Fractal Design Meshify C ATX Tower, and I've got two guests here. Moss, the Mosquito, is returning.
I seem to be here a lot.
And we got Jacques in the moderator queue for the chat. He'll be fielding your questions and comments. And this case just released on Newegg today for $89.99. And some people have noted that there's some similarities between the Meshify C and the Define C, and we'll go over those details.
They're all wrong.
Are they?
No, they're not.
Now, if you're familiar with our live stream, what we do is we just do a reactional overview of the product. We dive in a bit deeper than some of the bigger YouTubes with their reviews, and we listen to your questions and feedback. And so let's get on with it. The biggest difference I'm seeing here is, go back to that front bezel again. I've never seen a mesh bezel on a Fractal Design case before.
Well, they've had mesh, but nothing quite like this.
No.
You can kind of see in the light that it is funky.
It is.
At least as funky as Fractal Design gets. Anyway.
It reminds me of an 80s raster design of like asteroids or something.
There you go. Yeah, like in some video game, or back in the day when the video game graphics were not what they are now. You know, it's like, oh look, we have this nice. What is this? Like Star Fox? Anybody remember Star Fox?
Oh, Star Fox. Was it the barrel roll?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, so you definitely do get new mesh. That is obviously not the same as the Define C, but there are definitely some similarities. Let's see, where do you want to start on this thing, Bill?
Well, okay, so let's keep looking at this front bezel here. This technically is the second case design released by Fractal Design to have a front perforated grille. Those of you familiar with Fractal Design are familiar with the minimalistic front bezel that just has the air vents on the side. And Fractal's been listening to feedback from people. Why not make something with a full mesh grille? And so here we have it. But there was a case released just a few weeks ago, the Focus G, that also has a front perforated grille.
Yep. But that one has just a flat front, and then there's a pair of 5 1/4 inch bays. But this one, kind of more on the Define chassis. I mean, you know, that sort of a concept where it's like, okay, we'll get rid of the 5 1/4 inch bays and we'll just make the whole front one giant piece. The only difference is this one has mesh, hence the name.
There's something that you showed earlier that's special about this.
You can poke it.
Well, maybe somebody poked it already. It kind of looks like that. But it's easy to remove for cleaning.
Yeah, I mean, easy is a little different, but so you first have to pull out the bottom. You have a nice mesh filter that runs the full length of the bottom of the chassis. And it's nice that you can pull it out the front instead of having to take the whole thing away from the wall, because I don't know about you, but usually I put the back of the computer against the wall, not the front. So you can pull this out the front to clean it, which is really nice. It's just kind of your standard. Actually, I don't know. They said something, I don't remember if it was this, that it's not actually like a PVC mesh. It's like a nylon mesh or something that they were talking about to have better airflow. But anyway, dust filter, so you can clean that off nice and easy. And then after that, you can reach underneath. There's a little kind of opening like you would normally pull off the front bezel, but you can reach up inside of there and you can reach the little kind of bar here. So you have a bar that lets you take off the front panel. You just kind of push that up and then this whole front panel pops off. And this is your front fan filter. So all of this has that kind of foam rubbery mesh, whatever you would call that. I don't even know what you would call it, but that's what it has all over. So this whole thing is a front mesh filter. Now, it is nice to have everything filtered, but at the same time, anything that gets through this mesh and caught in this is going to be between your metal and your mesh, which then you're bending tabs, and that's never any fun. But you have a lattice work of plastic reinforcing on the back, and there's some sections here where there's like little points that go to the front. So this is actually, despite how fragile it might look, it's actually not bad. You know, you can push on it, but it never really feels like you're going to push on it to the point where it just is never going to spring back and you've permanently dented it. So It's pretty nice, actually.
Now that badge looks like it's removable.
It is, but it's not very pretty when you do. Not gonna lie.
Maybe an opportunity to do something custom, take it and replace it with something else, or...
We would not condone modding on this channel, Bill. Maybe we would.
Hashtag Bill scolded by mods.
But yeah, so just 2 screws, and that is pretty easy to remove. But then you're ended up with that. So you're gonna want
better with it.
Yeah, you're gonna want to replace it. And this is pretty flat, so if you wanted to, you could easily put your own like vinyl sticker over it or something if you wanted to. But it is removable.
Benji says, "You tell him, Moss."
No, Bill, no. We are not modding in this house.
Now, going back to the comparison between this and the Define C, the Define C, not a front mesh grill. It's your typical solid front bezel with just the air vents on the sides, and then you've got the air intake where your hand goes on the bottom to remove the bezel. But that has a removable front filter screen. So, okay, now this front bezel assembly, does this pop off easily like the Define C?
Almost. You can get to a point, so you can pop this off just like you normally would, but then...
Okay. Whoa! It's like my old bicycle lock from 1979. It's yeah.
Yeah, we're attached.
Yeah, so you got to you have to contend with that when you're, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a cost-saving thing because you got that tempered glass panel on this now, and there's an expense with having that.
It's true. But, I mean, you do get, with all of your tethering of your bezel to your chassis, you do get a pair of USB 3.0 ports, a square power button, which is different than the Meshify or the Define C, and then you get your headphone, microphone, and a reset.
Also, I know it's different is that the power button's square on this instead of round, and it's not illuminated.
Nope. Instead, you get a little light here.
Oh, that's cool. It's kind of discreet.
It looks
like that. So that shines through the front mesh.
Yep, must. And it looks like there's 2 sets of wires going, so that's probably both power and hard drive activity if I had to guess. But that is just a guess, so don't quote me on that. I'll put that back in for now. Maybe. Ta-da.
All right, so looking at the other edition here, this is the 3rd case announced this week from Fractal Design that has a tempered glass side panel on it. The new Define C and the new Mini C, those both have TG panels on them. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay.
I know you can at least get it on the Define C, so I would assume you can also get the Mini C with it too.
And this is smoked.
It is smoke tempered glass, so you get a little bit of a tinting to it, which is kind of nice. I usually prefer that versus just the straight clear panels, just because it sort of hides things until you turn lights on inside. So I don't know. That's obviously personal preferences, but the inside of it, we see a painted outline on the kind of perimeter, so it hides things like, you know, the edges of all this case, and then these little mounting brackets for where the tempered glass panel goes on to, and then you have all this stuff. So that gets hidden by the paint on that, which I like. I think that's probably going to be the way most of these tempered glass panels end up going, is doing something to hide that stuff, because there's really no need to have all that stuff showing. And then we also get some foam rubber padding on the front and the back, and then on the case you get it on the top and the bottom, and that just keeps things from rattling, so you don't have to worry about this thing shaking around and making a bunch of noise.
And these brackets look pretty heavy duty too. I like that. Real thick rubber grommets.
And they definitely feel sturdy too. So yeah, tempered glass side panel. I mean, that's probably the only 2 big differences that you're going to find between this and the Define C. Which
I spy something else different.
The fans are a little different.
They're not white for one, and these are a brand new fan from Fractal Design. These are the X2 GP-12 120 millimeter fans. Sound level on them is 18.9 decibels, airflow 4 CFM, that airflow is pretty good.
Not bad for that volume level, that sound volume level, that is. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty typical Fractal design. If you're looking for supreme radiator fans, you're gonna want to look for some aftermarket fans. But if you want to move a decent amount of air as quietly as you can, these are going to be pretty good fans for that. And it comes with 2 of them, one in the front, one pre-installed in the back. And on the back, you get these slots, so you can move your fan up and down, which is always really nice. If you're going to put a radiator in the top, you can move it down so you can have the extra clearance for that. Or if you're going to go with a single radiator in the back, like if you had an AIO, a smaller AIO, or if you just wanted to expand your custom loop, so you can move this up or down based on where you want the ports to be. So if you want the ports on top, leave it low. If you want them on the bottom, then you raise it up and all that kind of fun. So it's always nice when they have stuff like that.
Or align it with your CPU cooler, you know.
That's true too.
Yeah.
As long as you're okay with air cooling.
Now, Jacques noticed that the rear of the chassis is identical to the Define C. There's no difference, even down to the power supply adapter plate too.
The only exception is for this, you get black PCI covers.
Versus, yeah,
but
white.
That's not really the back panel anyway. Yeah, so you get the same bracket for the power supply. And what this is for is to take off, and then you can mount your power supply on this. And it doesn't matter which way you go back in, if you have fan up or fan down, because there is mesh in the power supply shroud as well as in the floor of the chassis. So either way, you're going to have good airflow for that, which is always a good thing. But one thing that we did notice before, when we were just kind of taking a look at this, the reason you need that bracket is because there's no other way to get the power supply in. Because you can't go this way.
No.
You know, you might be able to get an SFX power supply in there, but not a full ATX. So in order to get this in there, you have to go through the back.
Yeah, it's a very compact design.
Yeah.
And another thing too is the power supply shroud. In none of the Fractal design cases where there's a power supply shroud design like this are they screwed in. They're all pop riveted in. Yeah, which I'd like to see that changed, hopefully in the future.
It would be nice if you could take that out if you wanted to, especially because sometimes it's a giant pain in the butt to try and route all your cables through that thing. I mean, this one's not as bad because you have this space to get in there, but for example, if you put the power supply in and you go, well, maybe I'm going to change video cards and now I need an 8-pin and a 6-pin instead of just a single 6-pin. Well, now you need a new connector, and then you're going to have to remove the power. It's just a pain. Not that removing the power supply shroud would be, because it'd probably be like 8 screws anyway. But one thing that they do let you do is remove 2 screws out of the front. We already have. There's one over there and then one here. And then you can actually take out this front panel on your power supply shroud, and then behind that you can actually get enough room to mount a 360 millimeter radiator in there, as long as you move your 3.5-inch drives.
So what you're telling me, Moss, is that my all-time favorite radiator brand, made by Hardware Labs, the Nemesis, the monster of all radiators, that will fit in my Meshify C build.
It will fit in more than one place if you want it to.
Oh.
I mean, you do need to move your 3.5-inch drives though, so I guess we might as well talk about that before we move them. Black trays, nice glossy finish, nice grommets so that you can isolate any vibrations and keep the noise down. And they're also drilled to mount a 2.5-inch drive too, but these are toolless to get in and out of the cage, but they're not toolless to mount your drive, so you still have to screw those into the bottom of the hard drive. But this whole assembly here has 4 screws that hold it in place on the bottom. And then on the bottom there's slots that those ride in. So if you wanted to, you can remove these 4 screws completely and then get rid of the entire cage if you wanted to, and then you can have more room to mount things like if you
Intake fan.
Mount another fan, yep.
Water pump.
There's grooves for that, and then it also actually looks like if you really wanted to, you could take some of the grommets, and there's some holes here that it looks like you could mount a hard drive straight to the floor if you wanted to.
That's cool.
So now that I've loosened up those screws, now you can move that towards the back if you want. Just keep in mind that, you know, you're going to start encroaching on the amount of space that you have for your power supply.
Yeah, the cables.
Which can be obnoxious. So if this is in about there, yep, definitely keep that in mind.
Well, I can tell you right away, Moss, that my build won't have 3.5-inch drives in it.
Yeah,
so I'm not worried about that.
I probably wouldn't either, at least not in this case. So yeah, once you do that, you can actually have some room. You can't do it with this radiator because it's a little bit too thick. So you'd actually have to take out the drive cage in order to fit that radiator. But if you wanted to have one of those 360 millimeter
skinnies,
all-in-ones, or one of these,
it's about 30 millimeters thick.
Millimeter thick. So that'll fit just fine with that drive cage still installed. And so that is an option to get a 360 millimeter radiator in there. But like you mentioned, I would probably just as soon remove the cage altogether and just not have to deal with it at all.
Does anybody in our chat that's watching see themselves getting a new case within the next 12 months and still buying 3.5-inch drives? I'm just curious. Let us know.
I know I probably wouldn't. In fact, I feel like a lot of people end up not even using 2.5-inch drives in a lot of their builds. Like if your main focus is gaming and you need a lot of space to store all of your games because you don't ever want to have to delete any of them, yeah, then you might have to get a secondary drive. But so many motherboards these days have built-in M.2 drives or drive slots, and they're so fast that to me that's my main drive. So it's kind of like, well, do I get 2 drives or do I just get one really fast drive that happens to be twice as expensive to get a bigger model? I like fast. Mm-hmm. So that's usually what I end up doing.
You're the RAID guy, I know. You're the local RAID guy.
I like RAID. I definitely like RAID. Data integrity or speed, whichever one you want.
A lot of people, other than Willie, he's going to do a 20 to 30 terabyte RAID build.
Jeez.
A lot of people say they will not be using a 3.5-inch hard drive. Is there anybody in our chat that's owned a Fractal Design case? And let us know which one you own or have owned. I've been a fan since day one. I was the first YouTube channel to do a review on a Fractal Design. I believe it was the R2 in 2009 or 2010.
Let's see. Do you remember the first time I actually met you? Second time, technically. The first time was the Modders meetup. Do you remember the second time I met you, Bill?
I thought we met on Tinder.
I said that we met, not that we encountered each other.
I'm kidding.
That's where I found my wife.
Jacques found his wife on Tinder. Hashtag Jacques gets married Tinder. I don't know.
But no, actually, the first case that I modded after I moved into my apartment was a Fractal Design Define Mini. So that was the original Define Mini. We cut a hole in the side panel to make a window, and then I also cut a hole in the top for some exhaust fans. But what I did was I took that and made it my file server. So that one actually has a lot of 3.5-inch drives in it because I have 2 4-bay RAID enclosures in the front with 8 hard drives in it.
I mean, has the 3.5-inch drive market, has it come down in price or remained steady compared to SSDs for cost?
The SSDs are definitely closing the gap, but you can get up to like 10 terabyte hard drives now. So if you wanted to find a 10 terabyte SSD, you might have to take out a mortgage to afford it.
A 4 terabyte standard drive is about 110, 115 bucks. So, and at that price point, you're at about 500 gigs for SSD.
And the big thing with hard drives is always like the noise from them. But like anything today, pretty much are they refined them to be more quiet today?
Yeah, like the Western Digital green and blue series for the most part is virtually silent. Most of them are running at 5,400 RPMs as well now instead of the 7,200 RPMs. So the power consumption is lower on them, but still it's just access time.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but for archival storage.
Yeah, for if you want to have a lot of video or music or whatever on your desktop, then it's nice to have that. And that's what I use mine for a lot, is just archive the projects that I'm working on. I'll just throw them on my desktop so they're easy and quick at hand, so I can edit some stuff if I need to or whatever. But it's always nice to have the option, if nothing else.
So we're looking at these fans. These are different for the Meshify C versus the Define C. And I've got the spec sheet here. So these are a new fan. They're the X2 GP-12. And this is a 120 millimeter version. There's 2 included with the Meshify C. Sound level is 18.9 decibels. Airflow 68.4 CFM, which is pretty decent. There's nothing listed for static pressure though for you water coolers out there.
Yeah, but chances are if you were going to be water cooling, you'd be looking for other fans.
Yeah,
anyway.
you know, I'll tell you right now, gang, MMPC Tech on eBay, I am selling all the fans that I've collected over the last decade from builds that I've removed, the factory fans. So take a peek on eBay for MMPC Tech. They're going at amazingly cheap prices.
All those stock case fans.
Oh, and I've got so many of them, just piles.
All right, so behind the motherboard tray, you have a nice big cutout for your, backplate on your CPU or whatever you need that access for, or M.2 SSD. I know a lot of smaller motherboards, especially, will put those ITX ones on the back here and get access to that. But there's one thumb screw that holds this in, and then 2 tabs on the other end. And this is a bracket very much like the Define C that we keep comparing it to, but this one is glossy as opposed to the same finish that the motherboard tray has. And it has room for up to 3 2.5-inch drives. So if you wanted to have 2.5-inch hard drives, you still wanted the size capacity of a hard drive, but you didn't want to have to take up all the space in the bottom front of this thing. You could still put 2.5-inch hard drives up here, or you can put regular SSDs up there, all that kind of fun. So that's kind of nice. I like that when they started using that space. I don't remember when it was. It was a while ago, but I think, maybe 3 years ago, people started using the space back here to mount SSDs. So that's always nice to just get a little bit more, use out of space that's otherwise.
I love it. It's a great idea. And if I'm not mistaken, again, anybody in the chat, wasn't Fractal Design the first to utilize this design for mounting the SSDs behind the motherboard like this?
It's the first one that I remember that covered this. There may have been somebody else that had them down here. But, But yeah, utilizing that space for sure.
Yeah, clever.
It was the first one I remember.
Plenty of standoffs for cables. And I like the last case we looked at, that Master Case 3.1, the stamping was kind of small, where these are nice and large for your cable ties. There's more down here, and there's here. For the longest time, nobody put one there, and I was like, what? You're doing all these other ones.
Try and tuck the cables back in. And yeah, and that is nice. There's not a ton of cable space. See, like if we, look at that, 3/4 of an inch roughly to the inside of here.
It's better than a lot, though.
It is better than a lot of cases. And you do get this front channel, and chances are you're going to be running your 24-pin through here anyway. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of get all that extra space, and you do get some Velcro tie downs too. So you got plenty of options to route your cables, even if you can't necessarily route everything back here. So it is pretty nice, and I do like that design, with the little step out here to just kind of give you a little extra room to route cables without necessarily making the whole case another inch wider.
Mm-hmm. Now, have we looked at the top yet? What's going on here?
In the top, you get another fan filter. This one is PVC, plastic, and magnetic. So no more modu vents. You actually get to have your top covered with mesh.
Nice and easy.
Want to do that.
No more broken clips trying to remove your modulant covers.
Who's been there? I've been there.
We've all been there. It's like initiation when you own Fractal Design cases.
Yeah,
and they listen to the complaints, and so that's why they're doing this now.
That's right, and pretty typical to most of Fractal Design's cases too. You have your radiator and fan mounts are offset, So they were pretty much shoved all the way to the window side of the case because that just gives you more clearance over your motherboard components, your RAM, or if you have a larger CPU heatsink or anything like that. So it is nice as long as, you know, you're not like me and you prefer everything to be perfectly symmetrical right down the middle, but then you'd have to add some height. So, you know, that'll happen. Let's see here. Let's get this thing side by side. Let you get the...
I'm going to do a little comparison here, gang, so you can see what I mean by compact. First off, this is the Mini C, not the Define C next to it. Although, if we turn them, Moss, the length is like...
Jeez.
Identical.
Yep. Can't see anything behind that one. So yeah, this one is a little bit taller than the Define C Mini, which, I mean, you would expect because it's obviously, you know, a micro ATX versus an ATX, but yeah, now you can kind of see what we were talking about. That back panel is, it's pretty much identical.
All right, I hear that Granddad wants to make his appearance here. This is a Define S, which is now 2 years old.
2? Oh, it's
Yeah.
ancient.
And the Define S has monkey DNA from the Mod Zoo. We actually worked with Fractal Design in the development of this case. Masa, you can also brag about what you were involved with.
My bracket's in there. I made a bracket for this thing. Well, I didn't actually make it, but I came up with a design for... It was an idea. We were looking at the prototype, and they were looking at, you know, like all the slots and stuff for mounting reservoirs or pumps and all that kind of stuff on the inside wall. And I was like, well, what about just you leave these slots in there, and then you get a bracket that spans these, so that way you can have horizontal slots too. So you just position something wherever you want it. And so
Let's show them the length difference.
it's my
here.
mini claim to fame, even though nobody knows. Yeah, that one's a little bit longer.
So that's a Define S, and Define S was the first chassis from Fractal Design to have no optical or data storage bays in it. Geared more for us DIY liquid coolers.
Those water coolers, those pesky water coolers always getting their parts wet. Well, I think that covers most of it, Bill. What do you think?
Jock, did people mention? Yeah, a lot of people mentioned that they've had Fractal Design, right, in the chat.
Yeah. Let me ask the group.
And let us know, also when you watch this video later after the live stream, you can post your comments and questions, because while we're live stream, it's only a live chat, so a lot of you are going to see this video later on. Let us know what you like about your Fractal Design case and why you would buy another one. For me personally, it's always been the fit and finish. Excellent quality for the money.
I've always liked that part of it too, where you get a very nice finish and a good quality. Like, this doesn't feel like you're gonna, you know, have it squish on you if you lean on it wrong, you know. And it's not by any means like a super high dollar case. It's not a $200-300 case, obviously, but it doesn't feel like it's only an $80-90 case. And that is something that I've always liked about my Fractal Design cases.
Currently, we look to on Newegg, the Define C is $79.99
with a window.
with a window.
The non-windowed version was the windowed version was $74.99 and the non-windowed version was $69.99.
Yeah.
And this retails for $89.99 right now. But with that, you get the mesh front panel and the tempered glass.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I've always liked Fractal Design. In fact, my first case was a Fractal Design XL, the tower, and our turntable pedestal was actually made from a Define XL side panel. And even after it's been cut up. Yeah, you recall, those of you that follow Fractal Design, Josh Smith, their marketing guy, he did a video where he, was a 12-gauge shotgun where he shot the side panel?
That's right. Yep, I do remember this. So the shotgun test. Yeah, he was shooting the side panel of this and an unnamed competitor, I believe. But if anybody follows cases and they know what's going on, they pretty much could tell who that was. But
so if you've got any final questions for us before we end the live stream, let us know in the chat and Jacques will alert us to them. We'd like to hear your thoughts on these live streams. Do you enjoy us doing them and getting involved? We're trying to create a new format of engaging our audience. Not so much a review format, but just like your initial reaction when you first see it. And I was telling Mas earlier, it's kind of like doing a podcast about a case. Just kicking back and talking about it,
It's like an interview. We're interviewing the case. Tell us what you know. Maybe not.
They like the live streams. Good. Awesome. Well, we'll try to get back again next week with another one, or at least in another 2 weeks, But we're going to have another new case to share with you. And I've been reaching out to manufacturers that you're not necessarily going to see other channels do reviews on, because as an enthusiast, I like to do things or see things different than everybody else.
Wander your way out of the mainstream.
Yeah, I like to see the interesting stuff. For example, on Twitter this morning, I tweeted at X2 Products. They're out of the Netherlands, and they've got some really interesting case designs that they've released. Like, if you look at my Twitter stream at MMPC Tech over the last 24 hours, you'll see my tweet where I shared one of their case designs. It's pretty radical, so I thought, hey, that'd be fun to do a live stream on. Yeah, that's right, Nikki.
The I/O again. I think somebody was asking for.
Oh, they want to see the I/O again?
The front panel, and I'm assuming they're talking about the I/O.
There's the top I/O. All black, no blue for the 3.0.
They do label them, though, so that way you know.
Yes.
They're not blue, but they're labeled, so it's okay. Nobody panic.
The extra 5 pins doesn't give it away.
No.
Yep. And the power button does not illuminate like it does on the Define C.
That's not labeled. How do I know what that's for? I suppose the reset button is labeled. So
Nikki says you've pre-ordered one already, Nikki. Where are you by chance? Are you in the U.S. or overseas? Interesting. Okay. Oh, you're in Germany. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. And don't forget that the Mosquito has a YouTube channel as well. It's the Mosquito, MODSQUITO on YouTube. And he's building the ultimate workshop right now. You've posted some updates, right?
I have. I need to post some more. Been working on that instead of modding, unfortunately. But hey, sooner or later we'll get back to that.
And also thank you to Jacques for watching the chat and helping us out today. It was great, man. Make a good team.
You're hired.
Right.
Starting salary is nothing.
All right, everybody, thank you for watching, and of course, give us a thumbs up and share the video. And once this live stream is over, it's going to convert to the comments area on YouTube. So please feel free to post your feedback after seeing this new case. What do you think of that new bezel design? It's pretty radical. It's different. It reminds me of asteroids from the 80s. And also you can post your questions too, and we'll check them when we can. So everybody, thank you for supporting and watching. Have a great night and weekend.